Hi everyone. We just took a close look at the Albatros-class and Gepard-class fast attack craft of Germany, both armed with the Exocet missile. These ships are a dramatic example of how naval power can hinge on one deadly weapon. But the Exocet itself deserves its own story, because over its decades of service it's undergone many upgrades, many versions, and has found its way aboard ships, submarines, helicopters, even fixed-wing aircraft. So today, the Exocet anti-ship missile, history and capabilities. We're going to trace its origins, its evolution, and the variants that have made it one of the most feared anti-ship missiles in modern naval warfare. The Exocet is a French-built anti-ship missile, developed by Nord Aviation, and designed to be launched from multiple platforms. Its name, Exocet, was coined by Mr. Guillot, then the technical director at Nord Aviation. The word comes from French, meaning flying fish. It traces its roots back to the Latin exocetus, itself a transliteration of the Greek name for a fish that sometimes flew out of the water and landed outside a boat, literally lying down outside. It's a poetic way to imagine something that flies low, skims the water, and strikes suddenly. Today, a number of countries use some version of the Exocet missile to guard their coasts, protect their navies, and project force at sea. Among them are France, the original developer and one of the biggest operators, using it aboard naval vessels and aircraft. Argentina, which used Exocet in the Falklands War. Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, and Peru in South America. Greece and Turkey in the Mediterranean. India in the Indian Ocean. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and other Gulf states. Other operators include Pakistan, Qatar, and South Africa. Depending on the variant, MM38, AM39, SM39, SM40 or MM40, the specific countries, platforms held and capabilities differ. Over its lifetime, the Exocet family has evolved from one basic surface-launched version, to a suite of variants, ship-launched, air-launched, sub-launched, modernized versions with improved guidance, better range, enhanced warheads, and countermeasures. Stay tuned, by the end, you'll understand what really makes the Exocet missile tick, and why it remains relevant more than half a century after it first entered service. Let's begin with the very first version of the Exocet, the MM38. This was the original surface-launched variant, the missile that laid the foundation for everything that followed. Developed in the late 1960s and entering service in the early 1970s, the MM38 was designed specifically to give warships a powerful, standoff capability against enemy vessels. The MM38 carried a 165 kg high-explosive fragmentation warhead, enough to cripple or sink medium-sized ships with a single hit. It was a sea-skimming missile, flying just a few meters above the surface of the water. This low-altitude approach made it extremely difficult for enemy radar to detect until it was too late. Guidance was provided by inertial navigation during the mid-course phase, and an active radar seeker in the terminal phase, which locked onto its target with deadly precision. The missile had an effective range of around 42 kilometers, which at the time gave smaller ships the ability to strike far beyond the range of their guns. The MM38 was not only a technological step forward, it was also an export success. Dozens of navies purchased and deployed it, mounting it on fast attack craft, corvettes, and frigates. Its combat effectiveness was demonstrated in conflicts such as the Falklands War in 1982, where Argentine forces used Exocet missiles to devastating effect against British ships. After the MM38 proved itself at sea, the next step was to take the Exocet into the air. That's where the AM39 comes in, the air-launched version of the missile. Introduced in the late 1970s, the AM39 was designed to be carried by a wide range of aircraft, from fixed-wing fighters and strike aircraft to naval helicopters. Launching from the air gave the missile one crucial advantage: extended range. While the MM38 was limited to about 42 kilometers, the AM39 could reach much farther, depending on the altitude and speed of the launch aircraft. Just like its predecessor, the AM39 flew a sea-skimming trajectory, hugging the waves at just a few meters above the surface. This made it incredibly hard to spot on radar until the very last seconds before impact. It carried the same 165 kg high-explosive warhead, capable of destroying or crippling enemy frigates, destroyers, or even larger targets. One of the best-known uses of the AM39 came during the Falklands War, when Argentine superintended aircraft launched AM39s against the British fleet. The missiles struck the destroyer HMS Sheffield and the transport ship Atlantic Conveyor, both losses that shook the naval world and demonstrated the Exocet's lethality. The lesson of the AM39 was clear: air-launched anti-ship missiles gave strike aircraft the ability to project naval power far beyond the horizon, with devastating speed and precision. The next leap in the Exocet family took the missile beneath the waves. This was the SM39, the submarine-launched version of the Exocet. Developed to give submarines a powerful anti-ship punch, the SM39 was designed to be fired from a standard 533mm torpedo tube. But unlike a torpedo, the SM39 did not stay underwater. Instead, it was enclosed in a watertight VSM capsule. After launch, the capsule would break the surface, stabilize itself, and then release the missile into the air. From that moment on, the SM39 behaved just like its surface and air-launched cousins, skimming just above the waves, racing toward its target. The missile carried the same 165 kg warhead, with guidance provided by inertial navigation and an active radar seeker in the final attack phase. Its effective range was about 50 kilometers, allowing submarines to engage surface ships without exposing themselves to immediate danger. What made the SM39 so effective was the element of surprise. A submarine could remain hidden, detect a target with its sonar or external targeting data, and then launch the missile without ever revealing its exact position. For enemy ships, this meant that danger could come not only from the horizon or the air, but suddenly from beneath the sea. The SM39 entered service in the 1980s and was exported to several navies, including those of France, Pakistan, and India. It remains in service today in modernized forms, giving submarines a fast, precise, and deadly alternative to traditional torpedoes. We've seen the Exocet launched from ships, from the air, and even from submarines in the SM39 form, but the story doesn't stop there. Meet the SM40, the latest submarine-launched member of the Exocet family, unveiled by MBDA as a modern, higher-performing successor to the SM39. Like the SM39, the SM40 is designed to be fired from a standard 533mm torpedo tube, stored and launched inside a watertight capsule. But the SM40 is a true upgrade. It's essentially a cut-down, encapsulated version of the modern MM40 Block 3 family, adapted to submarine use so boats can launch a missile with the reach and capability of the latest surface-launched Exocet. The headline improvements are practical and lethal. The SM40 integrates a modern J-band coherent RF seeker and upgraded onboard algorithms, giving it much better target discrimination in crowded seas and improved resistance to electronic countermeasures. In short, it can find and home on the right ship even in a high-intensity electronic warfare environment. Range is another step change. MBDA and independent reports say the SM40 roughly doubles the reach of the older SM39, meaning a submarine can strike targets from much greater standoff distances, increasing survivability while giving commanders new operational options. Operationally, the SM40 keeps the Exocet family's core strengths: sea skimming flight, an effective warhead, and fire-and-forget terminal homing, but it packages them with modern electronics and longer reach. For navies that already operate Exocet-equipped platforms, the SM40 offers a way to standardize capability across ships, aircraft and submarines while keeping doctrine familiar. Unveiled publicly at Euronaval in 2024, the SM40 is part of MBDA's push to keep the Exocet relevant in the era of dense littoral operations and advanced ship defenses. Expected to appear first on export lists and then in service with countries that operate Block 3 family missiles or want a modern, encapsulated anti-ship option for their submarines. Now let's look at the MM40, the ship-launched branch of the Exocet family and the platform that carried the system into the long-range era. The MM40 Block 1 was the first ship-launched evolution beyond the original MM38. It borrowed improvements first proven on the air and sub-launched Exocet variants, better aerodynamics, a more capable seeker, and an updated propulsion package. In practice, Block 1 gave surface ships a more reliable, more accurate surface-to-surface strike weapon than the older MM38. The MM40 Block 2 refined that concept. It improved the missile's mid-course navigation and low-altitude flight control so it could hold a steady sea-skimming profile at just a few meters above the waves. That reduced detection time for defenders and increased the chance of a successful terminal intercept. Block 2 also widened the seeker search pattern and allowed the missile to discriminate between closely spaced targets, useful in crowded littoral waters. The real step change arrived with the MM40 Block 3. Engineers fitted the missile with a small turbojet engine, replacing the shorter burn rocket motor used in earlier blocks. That turbojet, and the more efficient flight profile it enabled, increased the missile's operational reach dramatically, putting it into the 180 to 200 km class. Block 3 also added waypoint and GPS-aided navigation, which lets the missile be programmed to approach a target from a chosen direction or to perform sea-skimming path optimization before terminal homing. Alongside range, Block 3 retained Exocet's classic strengths, a 165 kg class blast-fragmentation warhead, active radar terminal homing, and robust sea-skimming algorithms that keep the missile centimeters to a few meters above the water to reduce radar exposure and increase survivability. The missile cruises at high subsonic speed, roughly Mach 0.9 to 0.95, fast enough to compress the defender's reaction window but slow enough to keep a fuel-efficient flight profile with the small turbojet. The newest incremental upgrade is the MM40 Block 3C, the C standing for Coherent Seeker. Block 3C integrates a modern digital, coherent RF seeker that significantly improves target detection, discrimination and resistance to jamming and clutter. In short, where older seekers saw a soup of returns, the Block 3C's digital processing can better pick out a ship, estimate Doppler and velocity features, and resist sophisticated electronic countermeasures. That makes it effective in dense EU environments and against modern ship defenses. MBDA also highlights Block 3C's improved mission planning, optimized 3D waypointing and the ability to coordinate simultaneous terminal attacks. Operationally, that combination, turbojet range, GPS, INS mid-course guidance, sea-skimming terminal flight, and a coherent RF seeker, turns the MM40 Block 3C into a long-ranged, survivable, and flexible anti-ship weapon. For commanders, the missile offers standoff engagement, multiple approach vectors via waypoints, and better performance in contested electromagnetic environments, all while keeping the same warhead and launch logistics that many navies already know how to handle. So, when you hear MM40 Block 3 or Block 3C, think of a compact missile that learned new tricks. It flies farther, thinks smarter, and looks at the enemy's radar picture with finer eyes. Put simply, it turns familiar Exocet lethality into reach and resilience for the modern battlefield. Thanks for watching.